beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
We've lost faith in America. We've lost faith in America. We've lost faith in America.
We've been traveling far without a home, not without a star. Money is America's love. It clouds the sight, blinds us to above. America is addicted to cash. Everything it does is so rash. Far, we've been traveling far without a home, not without a star. Money, America only wants to get money. We huddle close, hang on to a dream on the boats or the planes. They've stopped coming to America. America's only filled with greed. America has lost its way. Oh, we're traveling light today. America's in the eye of the storm. In the eye of the storm. America is addicted to cash. Everything it does is so rash. Money is America's love. It clouds the sight, it blinds us to above. We've lost faith in America. 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 We've lost our faith in America. Freedom has burnt out in America. My country, 'tis of thee, where the people may think they're free. It's ever so clear, they live in fear. No longer free, the world can see. America, you've lost your touch, your edge, your freedom. The world has lost faith in America.
Some here said they wouldn't normally take part in such demonstrations, but that enough was enough.
These people say they want their voices heard against a culture of greed, particularly in the banking sector. They also ask why a very small minority of people, the elite, has the power to control the majority of wealth in the society. Ali Sheikh Al-Islami, Euronews, London.
Americans think they are free, but
there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right.
Who owns America? Let's look into the situation. Celebrity worship is used to help hold and bind people. Who rules the world?
Governments don't rule the world. Goldman Sachs rules the world.
It was the comment heard around the world, one that generated widespread reaction from papers and pundits alike.
We appreciate your candor, however, it doesn't help the rest of us, does it?
Washington is not the biggest player in this. The global bankers are the biggest players, the global hedge fund managers, and that's where the action, that's who's determining the outcome of this, not the players in Washington. They have already ceded control to the global banking industry.
Wall Street has been pulling the strings in Washington from the get-go. It is the largest sector of campaign contributions, and that's to both parties.
After the last bailout, Goldman Sachs really made incredible, fantastic, ludicrous profits where the rest of the world got cheated and needs help. Here's what some think of Goldman Sachs.
As a, quote, great vampire squid wrapped around the face of humanity, relentlessly jamming its blood funnel into anything that smells like money. Taibbi discussed with us recently how, although people are unaware of it, the big bank has profound power in society.
How much are you paying for gas? How much are you paying for electricity? How much are you paying for your credit cards, your mortgages? How much are you paying in taxes, and how much of your tax dollars are going to debt service?
That is what democracy looks like!
Unlike the mainstream media, few here would be shocked by Rastani's comments.
What we've seen is a dramatic rise in these billionaires, these ultra-rich people. And we don't even know who all of them are, but we do know that they put profit over people, and they use mind control to get more.
Over the national debt. A debate that directly affects the lives of all Americans. For the last decade, we've spent more money than we take in. In the year 2000, the government had a budget surplus. But instead of using it to pay off our debt, the money was spent on trillions of dollars in new tax cuts, while 2 wars and an expensive prescription drug program were simply added to our nation's credit card. As a result, the deficit was on track to top $1 trillion the year I took office. The first approach says, let's live within our means by making serious, historic cuts in government spending. Let's cut domestic spending to the lowest level it's been since Dwight Eisenhower was president. Let's cut defense spending at the Pentagon by hundreds of billions of dollars. Let's cut out waste and fraud in healthcare. At the same time, let's make modest adjustments so that Medicare is still there for future generations. Finally, let's ask the wealthiest Americans and biggest corporations to give up some of their breaks in the tax code and special deductions. This balanced approach asks everyone to give a little without requiring anyone to sacrifice too much.
Well, the doctor buys the drug directly from the pharmaceutical company. They give a rebate based on the amount the doctor purchases. Then the doctor sells it to the patient. No discount to reflect the rebate. And is reimbursed by either Medicare or private insurance. So he's making a cash windfall every time he prescribes the drug. The fix is in.
Objection. Sustained.
These doctors are bought and paid for.
Then I would tell you how my mother died. New blood thinner medication, which when combined with aspirin, caused her to bleed out from an ulcer. Turns out her doctor, who prescribed the medication, was a paid consultant for the drug company.
You don't think doctors are on the take, do you?
I think they prescribe drugs they think are safe. But, I mean, let's face it, with the rising malpractice premiums, lower HMO reimbursements, many doctors can't even afford to practice these days without pharmaceutical consulting grants. And with those grants comes a loss of objectivity.
That loss of objectivity means that doctors are under the influence of the drug companies and the money. And do that patent medicine kill patients? Well, the answer is yes.
You know the death grip the pharmaceutical industry has on this country. They've infiltrated the FDA. A study showed that 90% of all FDA advisory meetings had at least one person with ties to big pharmaceutical, and then there's Congress. Big Pharma gave members of Congress $70 million since 1990. So who does that leave us with but our doctors? And even they're being bought. Between consulting fees and rebates, doctors get hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And my God, look what's happening. Drugs are being prescribed like candy. A famed Harvard psychiatrist, he helped fuel the recent boom in antipsychotics for kids. Turns out he personally took over $1.6 million from drug makers over the past 7 years. He also failed to report this income to the university, by the way. How can this be? We have no regulations, no disclosure procedures in place, nothing to ensure that we, the patients, can know whether our doctor is on the take. How can this be?
Here it is, the U.S. debt clock. That this is 12/7/2011, and the national debt is over $133,000 per taxpayer. But if we look into the actual pharmaceutical prescription drug liability, we're going to see the liability per taxpayer is $1 million per taxpayer liability. Who owns America? Let me tell you.
So there is no law governing the criminal acts of these various banks, is there?
It's good to be the king. Listen, you know, when you have a congressional system that is based on eBay, when you could buy a congressman or a senator, when they get sold to the highest bidder, who gives a f*** about regulation? Who cares about any of that? You can do whatever you want.
We have about 30 seconds left. What do you think about this story that Congress is legally allowed to engage in insider trading with pre-IPO stock given to Congress people? It's not legally considered to be a bribe. Your thoughts?
It's consistent with everything else we know about the Parliament of Whores that is the U.S. Congress. They are up for bid. You know, we really need a third party to actually see if we can maximize how much we could sell them for. Place your bet, buy a congressman, get whatever regulation you want passed. That's how America works in 2011.
And I see it, and I think to myself, at the center of this really is the Fed. They're in this thing all the way around. And yet, you want to talk about powerful people. You've got a majority of congressmen that are willing to say, we need to open up the books of the Fed. You can't even get this thing brought to the floor now. Why is that?
Well, so far we haven't been able to. We have 273, which includes almost 90 Democrats, so the large majority of the congressmen want it. They don't want it because they really understand the issue and they're not motivated by philosophy as much as the fact that this has struck a chord with the American people, and the American people are demanding more transparency.
Mr. Paul here is trying to change that, make the Fed accountable.
I think you generally agree with it. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two parties.
No.
You know, they're owned by the same people. You take this Goldman Sachs issue. Wouldn't it be revealing if we were able to get the transcripts and all the agreements and discussion that all Treasury and all Federal Reserve officials have had with Goldman Sachs? I mean, that would be a revelation. But, boy, they're hysterical when they think we're coming down close to saying that we might be able to open up the books.
They got bailed out. We got sold out. They got bailed out. We got sold out. Banks got bailed out. We got sold out.
You see, the ultra-rich, the big oil, the big pharma, the big tobacco, the big sugar, all of these people, they really control, and the banks really control the people and absolutely own America and own the people. Everybody owes money to these people, and it's incredible. And now we're trying to protest, and yet we're not really getting coverage of the protest. We're not really seeing solutions. We're seeing Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Times Square. We're seeing these people going out and trying to make a message that they want change, and they're unable to really get it across because the real owners don't want that. Are they going to have that up and let go? I don't know, but it doesn't look like it. We're not even seeing the stories being told. If we look at the start, Thomas Jefferson said he believes that the banks are more dangerous to liberty than all the armies of the world. Andrew Jackson fought the bank war and won and kept the bankers out of the money. But Woodrow Wilson gave in and signed into law. And on his deathbed, he said he was unhappy that he allowed bankers to take control of the money from the government. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. And many of the Fed's owners are secret, and they don't account to anybody. In 2010, they made an $80 billion profit, while the rest of the world, the rest of Americans suffered. And then Reagan came along and started giving tax breaks to the rich. We were told that the wealth would trickle down, but the wealth is not trickling down. Right now they're hoarding it. And the super rich, the greed game, where everybody loses. Greed, greed, greed. And the bailout gave money to the banks, and the people give money to the banks. They still owe that money on the foreclosure. And the freedom of speech is going to the ultra-rich media. They're not really allowing these type of stories to be told. Freedom of speech belongs to anybody who can afford it. That's the way this country has gone now. And we need to be able to find solutions. In 9/11, this incredible event happened of 9/11. And yet it led to a fight, a war, that cost $3 trillion. Where did that money go? That money went to Halliburton and went to the rich people, went to rich American companies, and the people didn't get any of that. The people didn't get that. And because of 9/11 on the 8th day of the 8th month of 2008, America granted itself the ability to listen to all communications. The ultra-rich now listen to all bank transactions, all telephones. They really do. And it's up to us to battle against them. The Desi versus the Goliaths. And these stories cannot be told by the media. You see, the media does not allow some topics to even be discussed or talked about. No, it's an incredible shame. And the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, that First Amendment, is gone now because of the ultra-rich. Rights of privacy, gone. The ultra-rich have revoked it. Using the world's fear. Big Brother is watching you. Is listening to your telephone even when it's off. They can listen in any conversation they wish on anywhere in the world. They know exactly where you are, tracking every move, trying to use mind control through the media. And the ultra-rich people use the media to manipulate our minds. And they use the mass media of NBC, CBS, Fox to twist. Here we're going to look at some of the ideas, how they handled the Occupy Wall Street. You see, they allow celebrities. They think it's about just a couple of celebrities that are made out to be semi-crazy. Celebrity worship is the key to these people. Sensationalism fills the news. Celebrities fill the news, not news. We need to learn to stop trusting the corporate media.
They go, what is it? What's that thing going down?
Here's Fox News and this ludicrous account of how they covered the Occupy Wall Street.
No, that is exactly an aspect of a mob. It is without cause. It is, as Jesus said, they hated me without cause.
They hated Jesus because he had a cause.
To the extent they say they stand for anything at all, they're against Wall Street. Well, Wall Street, but they support
Wall Street,
Obama.
the ultra-rich, is pulling the strings on everything that happens in our lives.
History to Obama. It was Obama who bailed out the banks. You know, for Pete's sake,
It's about
let
Obama.
Lehman Brothers go
It's
under.
not
What else do we
an issue of Republican, Democrat.
President Obama has been more supportive of Wall Street. Now, some of these
It's
protesters,
an issue of the ultra-rich greed.
Right, I mean, it's overwhelming. The Democratic Party is attached at the hip to Wall Street, the same way that
As is the Republican Party attached to the hip.
It got started, except by the Democrats, that Wall Street is Republican.
The entire political system is a manipulative ploy of the ultra-rich to take away rights and to get what they want, which is profit over people, as they use the media to spoon-feed these ideas. And the FDA is just a puppet of the big money tobacco and big pharma. And after the bailout, the ultra-rich have money to burn.
Any state, they want control. Do you want the real answer? They want control over everything you do.
But now they want to see wild salmon.
The ultra-rich want control of everything that you do. Mind control over the people through the media.
A local news reporter physically threatened by an Occupy Wall Street thug. We've got the tape next on The Five.
Welcome back to The Five. So as the Occupy protests rage on, some protesters have become truly adorable. Did I say adorable? Sorry, I meant unstable. Here's Fox 5's news reporter John Huddy, brother of our own Juliet, in Zuccotti Park.
He's making no sense right now. He's ripped this off the mic. He ripped this off.
Oh my God, he took the little foam thing off the microphone. Oh my God.
As well, and he just threatened to stab me in the throat with a pen. Okay? Is this how you guys treat people who come in here? Is this how you treat the media?
Oh, delightful. But can we really condemn that threat when it's for a greater good? And yeah, the Tea Party didn't break any laws, but weren't their principles the real crime? The kind that offend movie stars in toupees? Wait, here's one now, yakking about the protests.
We live in the United States where you can protest. And so, you know, God love them. And I think that it's less about individuals than it is about a systemic problem with a system that is out of control.
He left that toupee at home. Yes, another overpaid actor complains about a system out of control. The solution? Buy a $12 million apartment, which is exactly what Alec Baldwin did right after visiting the protest. Basically, a decent crook can make a career out of fleecing the Fed, and I, for one, feel stupid that I'm not scamming the government. I'm a sucker.
But yeah, you should get a defense contract.
Yeah.
That's a scam.
But at least they produce something.
What did the defense people produce?
At this late hour on Saturday night, but by Monday morning they hope to have thousands again, attracting them through Facebook. Some are even camping out, prepared to stay here for months or weeks at a time.
This isn't our thing. It's from Egypt and Spain and Greece. We just adopted it from New York.
I'm sick and tired of the American public being so passive and just accepting the things that our government gives us.
Began with a small, disorganized protest on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan here in New York, has grown today to demonstrations nationwide against corporate greed. From New York to L.A., even up in Maine, people took to the streets to express their anger and make sure their message is heard. But what exactly is their message? We sent NBC's Michelle Franzen to find out.
2 weeks and counting. Several hundred faithful protesters continue to camp out at a park near Wall Street. Their numbers grow each day, fueled by the power of social media. A few scuffles with NYPD and the common threat of discontent over high unemployment and distrust of government and corporations.
There's something unjust going on right now in this economy, in this society.
John Avidable drove from Connecticut to speak out.
Because we can't pay for big, expensive lobbyists to work for what we want.
The sit-in has turned into a small community, complete with a food kitchen and media center. But by design, there is no one leader of this group and no organized set of demands.
Demonstrations have been held in various U.S. cities as momentum grows in the Occupy Wall Street movement. Among the other places taking part on Wednesday were Los Angeles and Boston, where some university students walked out of lectures in solidarity. The epicenter remains New York, where about 5,000 people took to the streets of the city's financial district to rally against economic inequality.
Never in the history of our world has this much wealth been concentrated in so few hands, and it's just out of control. And finally people are waking up and saying no.
But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest.
Yes, critical thinking, education, equal economic education. This is the point that they're really trying to protest, and they're not even given the chance to protest against these things. It's all reduced down to getting the rich to pay more and more taxes, and I'm sure that they'll make some trivial little change in that way. But that's not the answer. The answer is a real look at all of the problems in the system. I look at how the pharmaceutical people right now own America, as every American citizen owes more than $1 million in liability to them. This is incredible, and they're taking away our rights of protest, taking away our rights of freedom of speech, taking away our rights, burning our rights of privacy. It's all changing, and we need to fight to change the world, to make it a better place. We need to find ways to free up the protest and to get back to the values of America, the protest. We've seen around the world how many places around the world protests have been able to turn over governments and make changes. We need to do the same type of thing. We need to recognize and fight for our rights. It doesn't have to be in the streets. We can do it through messages on the internet to help get people to see other types of opinions and to open their mind, not to just accept everything that they see, but to think with critical minds, because the critical minds would tell you that to use a synthetic anything as an insult to the body, we must be able to recognize this. We also have to recognize that there's incredible biodiversity and people are not all the same, so we have to have ability to allow that. We have to recognize that anybody under the age of 18 should not be smoking, and anybody who has let them smoke is somebody that should go to jail for reckless endangerment. We need to recognize that that white dextrose sugar creates a burden on the system and creates more and more diabetes. We have to look at all the synthetic generation and recognize what we've done to this world and how we have hurt the world in 1,000 different ways and how to repair it. We don't have to dig for our oil. We can find our oil and grow it. We need to get back to the earth, back to the plants, back to humility, back to respect, and to respect all the people, and to get away from this ultra-rich control. Because what we have now is an ultra-rich control over the minds of the people and over the media.
Police treatment of protesters in a video now gone viral on the web. Those who risked their lives for America, now part of the uprising. Marines and others who serve the U.S. go public in their fight for the Occupy Wall Street cause.
These people should not have to destroy property to get across a point. We need to look at what these corporations have done and how they've shifted America into a corporate world of profit over people. We need to be able to look at these different things and find ways to help change this system and get to critical intellects and teach our people how to think before we burn up the system. We have to recognize, to help people, and to get away from just celebrity worship and just to be spoon-fed items through the media. You have to understand that the ultra-rich control what politicians say, and you think that it's just up to the politicians and that's all we debate. But it's not true. Our children today can't read. They can't find America on a globe. They don't know who won the Civil War. They don't know the teachings of Jesus or even basic law, but they know who won Academy Awards, who wrote their favorite songs, what their celebrities had for breakfast, and what kind of car the celebrities drive, or the shoes that they wear. The ultra-rich have replaced education with celebrity worship, replaced freedom with computer control, replaced justice with fear of indictment. They've replaced honor with greed, replaced love with hate, and they foster all the false beliefs, making them money. The people have no skills to discuss issues. They discuss personalities and celebrities as if that's enough. When a true hero comes along, the ultra-rich simply get a debate about their clothing or dispute about their background or something to distract the people from seeing truth and intellectual purity. We need to see the heroes and see the works of the angel.
and that the disparity between rich and poor is growing deeper and deeper. Some facts were compiled by a variety of different organizations, and those statistics include the fact that the top 1% owns 40% of America's wealth. Now, this disparity, according to reports, is worse than it's been in the past 25 years, at its worst level. A second point is that the top 1% take home 25% of America's national income. And the third point is that the top 1% owns half of the country's stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. This is just a little brief synopsis of what the Occupy movement has been referring to when they talk about corporate greed, possibly, or when they talk about the economic disparities within the United States.
The net worth of the less than 60 richest New Yorkers has recently spiked by an entire $19 billion.
1% of the population controls 70% of the returns to wealth. It's never been that high. It's never been that bad.
Well, first my husband lost his job, which put a lot of strain on the marriage. Ultimately, it contributed to, well, after the divorce, with the settlement, I was able to buy a small house.
In Richmond?
Yes. The school systems were good there, so I have 3 children. I wanted them to get a good education, so I moved to Richmond. And then 2008 happened. I lost my part-time job, and my husband couldn't make his alimony payments, and so suddenly...
You couldn't make your mortgage payments.
Yes, so I went to my bank, and they claimed they were in distress too.
So what happened?
Well, I found God in a hurry. And a friend of mine in the banking industry said, forget God, just pray for that bailout package to go through. He said that if the government bails out the banks, that they could then rescue us. And when it did go through, when I saw that headline, Congress approves bailout package, I did thank God then, I did. So I called Mr. Gray looking for my lifeline, and he said, true, they were receiving federal help, but they wouldn't be passing any of that help on to us.
And how did that make you feel?
You have no idea. For 20 years, I'd been a loyal customer, and then when I needed their help, I just got, sorry, now we'll take the keys to your house. And then I called my congressman, and I got the same response. Sorry, but no bailout money for you. Only the big people get their help, only Wall Street.
And then what?
Well, I tried to move on. I did, but I couldn't. The more I thought about it, the angrier I get. They created this mess with their giant Ponzi scheme, then they get bailed out, and they're supposed to use that bailout money to help people like us, but what did they do? They just stuck it deeper in their own coffers and started taking million-dollar bonuses. So then I just decided that I'd take things into my own hands. You know, I'd be damned before I let my children go homeless or let them starve.
So what did you do?
I got my gun, went to my bank. I looked that teller straight in the eye and I said, I need money to feed my children. You're gonna give it to me. And she did. And I left.
Okay, but Elaine, I understand why you blame the banks, but why the government?
The government enabled all of this. First by deregulating the banks, giving them carte blanche, and then they gave them $700 billion to do whatever they want with, and they kept it. The government let this happen, and now all these rich bankers are buying bigger houses while people like me are losing ours? The government is complicit in all of this. Damn right I blame them. Damn right.
Thank you. I have nothing more.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Elaine Lister took $60,000. For that, she faces prison. There are bankers, investors, who essentially stole billions, brought this country to near economic collapse. You know how many have gone to jail? 0. None. All those perpetrators of the mortgage fraud that crippled our economy, caused financial ruin for so many, not one has even been prosecuted. But hey, let's get Elaine Lister. Consider the atrocities committed by the banking industry and the government. First, the deregulation of derivatives, which paved the way for those credit default swaps, leading to the great mortgage Ponzi scheme. Then, after those Wall Street thieves f***ed us all up the ass, can I say that? Those criminally incompetent hacks in Washington spent over $1 trillion in taxpayer money to bail them out, with no quid pro quo. No system put in place to track how the banks were to use that money. There were no requirements that they increase lending to consumers. Instead, they just stuck it in their own pockets, took more big bonuses, and as for the rest of us, right up the ass again. Throw them all in jail. How about the 10 worst offenders? How about 1? No, not 1. Not 1. But hey, let's get Elaine Lister. Goldman Sachs deliberately duped clients, sold them lousy deals that their firm then profited from by betting against. That's criminal fraud. Jail? For anybody? Nope. But let's get Elaine Lister. Ms. Mendelsohn says, watch out. We've got social unrest. Is it any wonder? These lugnuts in Washington nearly shut down the government because they can't pass a budget. Millions of Americans are going belly up. And what the hell do they expect? When a government acts to betray the interest of its constituents, civil disobedience isn't just a right, but a duty. Elaine Lister was making a point that day. She didn't wear a mask. She knew she'd get caught. She was in that bank to make a point. She's not a criminal. She is a hero. The outrageous government conduct defense is pretty simple. It applies when the government conduct is so outrageous that it violates fundamental principles of fairness to prosecute a defendant. If not now, when? Government. Hero. Government. Hero. Government. Hero. That's your choice.
Governments should fear the people. The people should not fear the government. There should be a hand-in-hand working together. This has been lost in America. As big money of the ultra-rich goes after more and more profit, any challenges of the sugar, of the oil, of the pharmaceutical, and people lose. And Solon from ancient Greece said, it should be a crime to shirk away from any controversy over the defense of liberty and freedom. Only through confrontation can we do this. When the government gave the banks money, the banks did not erase the loan from the creditors. The homeowners had to pay back their loans. Even after the evictions, they still had black marks on the credit. The government did nothing to help the people. The banks did nothing to help the people. The government helped only the banks. Why did they not give the money to the banks in the name of the people who really need help? The banks would get their money from the people. They would get the relief, but that's not what they did. The banks took their houses to be able to repossess them so the banks could get paid twice, 3 times, and the people got nothing. When do you wake up? None are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe that they are free. Get a job, go to work, get married, have children, follow fashion, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save for your old age, and repeat after me, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free. You see, the powerful ultra-rich people own the media. They manipulate our minds. The media tells us what to think and how to think it, and who's wearing what and who's doing what. And the ultra-rich people will kill for profit. They promote racism, they control the minds. And oh, how easy the Illuminati have tried to control the minds. Whatever you do, don't trust the suit. You see, there are these mindful idiots. You can spot the mind-controlled smug assholes who defend the ultra-rich at every turn, in every place, in every bar. The mind-controlled person agrees with big media. He loves celebrities. He obeys every little law, and he has no feeling. The mind-controlled person thinks poverty is funny. The mind-controlled person grins stupidly at social repression. The mind-controlled person is a slave of the ultra-rich. They are not able to think clearly. They just go about their business and mindlessly laugh at everything. The mind-controlled obey. Now it's time to wake up and smell the plutocracy. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to come to an awareness. It's time for us to shake this Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street protesters have been arrested on Tuesday in Boston. Dozens more have been held in Chicago and Washington, D.C. Thousands across America have been rallying for weeks now, attacking corporate greed and Wall Street bank bailouts and profits.
Woman on the ground screaming, crying after getting assaulted brutally by police. Disgusting.
Everywhere I hear the sound, I'm marching, charging feet, boy. 'Cause summer's here, the time is right for fighting in the street, boy. What can a poor do except to sing the blues? 'Cause sleepy London town, there ain't no place for street fighting man. No!
The police response has been overly violent and brutal. They maced 5 women. They collected them around a net and then maced them, and they weren't even warned. The captain stepped up, maced their faces, and then tried to run away and avoid cameras that were around.
No! They think the time is right for Paris revolution. But where I live, the game to play is compromise solution. But what can a poor boy do except to shake his hand? 'Cause sleepy London town, there might be a place for street fighting men. Yeah.
This is a historical moment. This is the beginning of the People's Revolution. This government is not working in the best interests of the people or this nation.
There's an awakening in the world today. People are waking up everywhere, and they're starting to say, no! No more! Hey! Hey! Said my name! It's called Desert Overland! Shout and scream! Kill the king! Releases so-and-so! No! But what can a poor boy do except to shake his hand? 'Cause it's sleepy in London town, there ain't no place for street fighting men. No! Get on down now.
But the system is far from ready to change. It is yet to start taking people's outrage seriously. While demonstrators marched the streets of the financial district, bankers shamelessly toasted life with champagne right in their faces.
The U.S. political and corporate elite embraces uprisings when they're far from American soil. But when similar events take place at home, bankers, politicians, largely the media, and many Americans turn a blind eye. While the financial district erupts with brutality and outrage, the rest of New York goes about its business as usual.
The
sticky emotion spread from fear. If all you want is more, then all you want is more. Just want more. The planet can be destroyed, you want more. Greed controls America, the rich want more. Big tobacco, big sugar, big pharma, all those best, all that they really want is more and more and more. Mind control, media, diversion, anything. They steal, they lie, they twist, they just want more. They make the wars, they kill and kill, they want more. They twist the media, twist their heart, they want more. More.
Enough is never enough. You know what they want? They want more.
Greed is good, greed is God, they want more. Greed is good, greed is God, they just want more.
Rights of privacy are gone. Rights of speech are gone. Freedom of assembly is gone. Freedom of protest gone. Freedom of speech gone. They're all mindless slaves, manipulated minds. They want control. They twist, they lie, they steal.
They want more, more. All they want is more and more and more. All they want is more and more, more and more, more and more. All they want is more and more. The greed wants more. There are people so greedy, they want more. Greed's a sticky emotion, they want more. If all you want is more and more, all you want is more. If all you want is more and more, all you want is more.
You don't care what people would think. People would think, people would think. You don't care about anything. You want more. You don't care about happiness. You don't care about the planet. You don't care about people. You don't care about something like that. All you want is more.
You don't want
anything but more. You don't care about anything. You don't want more. You don't care about society. Society. You don't care about anything. All you want is more. When you can be destroyed, you want more. Bring control to America. The rich want more. Big tobacco, big sugar, big pharma, big oil, more. All I want is more. Mind control, media, commercial, they want more. All you want is more and more and more and more and more. All you want is more. More and more and more. Greed takes over. Makes us so crazy. Greed wants everything that they only want more. All they want is more. 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 All the greed wants is more and more and more. 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 All they want is more.
Whatever you do now, don't trust the suits. I say whatever you do now, don't trust the suits. Money is the root of all evil, they say. The suits are the devil now every day. In this world you can't see, there's no peace for you and me. Someone threatens us today, someone creates the problems every day. I say whatever you say now, don't trust the suits. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suits. Greed and anger, force of war, fragile world might be no more. There's one thing at the root, the enemy wears a suit. I say now, whatever you do now, don't trust the suits. Don't trust the suits. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suits. The suits are the problem, they match that cure. They ever trust the suit, the cause of all evil, money's the root. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Money is the root of all evil, they say. Suits are the devil every day. There's no peace for you and me. Someone threatens us today, you see. Someone creates some problems now every day. The suits are the ones that get in our way. Greed and anger, the force of war. A fragile world might be no more. Whatever you do now, don't trust a suit. I say that whatever you do now, don't trust a suit. Suits care for money, they don't care for you. Suits destroy a world now it's true. Suits mess themselves as friends, they say, but the suit threatens the world every day. Money is the root of all evil, they say. The suits are the devil now every day. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. The suits are the problem, they mask the cure. Don't ever trust the suit now, that's for sure. Suits represent greed, they represent money. Suits destroy the seed, the problem's not funny. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. In this world, can't you see? Whatever you do, wherever you be, the money's the root of all evil, they say. The suits are the devil now every day. Suits can mask as friends, but their treachery will never end. In this world, can't you see, there's no peace for you and me. Someone threatens us today, creates some problems every day. And I'll tell you who that is. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. Whatever you do now, don't trust the suit. The greed, anger, force of war. A fragile world might do no more, so whatever you do now, don't trust the suit.
The ultra-rich control banks, governments, scientists, media, movies, news, music. Big sugar, big tobacco, big pharmaceuticals, big oil, big war. They all seek to control us, and none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free.
They are fed up with corporate greed, bank bailouts, unemployment situation. You know the name by now, the Occupy Wall Street protesters. The movement started in New York's financial district near the stock exchange, but after more than 3 weeks now, the protests are spreading all over the country. Asking exactly who these folks are and exactly what they want. So instead of us trying to explain it to you, we'll let them do it. What is it that actually motivated you? You heard about it, maybe want to go check it out, but what is it that made you want to go out in the streets to say whatever it is you're wanting to say right now?
I think this is something that's resonating across the country, is social and economic inequalities hit a tipping point, and people are hungry for getting involved and trying to do something to change it. When 9 out of 10 races in politics is won by the candidate with the most money, when 1 in 4 kids in Georgia right now are in poverty, that's a 21% increase since the recession started.
The American debt has dramatically increased. Increases $4 billion every day. Every citizen knows more and more. America has become the land of indentured servants. Land of the formerly free. Now we all owe money to the Fed. And they think there's freedom of speech, but it really isn't freedom of speech when money can buy influence. And the bailout just gave money to the rich, not to the poor. The poor had to give money to the banks, and the government gave money to the banks. You see, what they really did was they just protected the banks and the bankers. They threw money at the problem, but money at the rich. The rich needed money to stay alive. What's some of the other bad things happening in the news? 1,500 people die from cancer each day. 20,000 people die each day from drugs. And that's doctor drugs included. 16,000 children die from hunger each day. 12,000 people a day die from the effects of smoking. 1,000 people die a day from wars. And there's an echelon system that's watching everything that we do. Gets every email, internet, every bank, every finance, every airline. A government that really finally listens to the people, but listens to everything. And at that time, when they turned on that system in 2008, all of a sudden, there was a complete financial collapse. Insider information on everything. And The Economist even had to say, oh fuck. As there was so much incredible shift of cash into the ultra-rich that got more and more and more. And they now had the information for more and more and more. What happened to our rights of privacy? Well, the ultra-rich revoked it by using the world's fear. The government of the people, by the people, for the people? No, it's government of the ultra-rich, by the ultra-rich, for the ultra-rich. As we're all hopelessly manipulated. Terrible
The
times.
people are struggling. It's almost like a I want the American dream back movement.
John, what do you do to change it, though? Your voice here, you got our attention. We've got you here. We've been covering the protest. Now what?
I think the first step is acknowledgement. I mean, people coming together in unity, acknowledging these issues and saying we have to be more progressive, more ingenuitive about coming up with solutions. And yeah.
Now, is it all right, because some people say you all, and I say you all, the protesters, I mean, they're all over the place, and you're not talking to every protest group in the country right now, but they say you don't have a list of almost specific demands or even solutions. What do you respond to those people who think you should have a solution in hand versus just maybe complaining about a system?
There are definite solutions, but see, the press won't cover solutions. They hadn't interviewed these people. They don't really cover the real solutions. Let's go over some of them. First, we must get the ultra-rich to pay their fair share of taxes. We must do this. This is something we must do. There's a lot of things else we have to do, but wealth is not trickling down. You see, they're laughing at us. These people are getting extremely, incredibly, sinfully rich. We need to do something. About a maximum wage? Well, I don't think so, but there should be a wage cut where you're going to have to now pay a very substantial amount of tax, a 50% tax. This way you can make more and more, but if you get to a certain level, you need to pay. And we need to have equality, equal economic education. 1 penny less is prejudice. We need to make sure that all people have the same rights of good education. You see, ICANN has democracy. Democracy doesn't work if everybody's stupid. We need equal economic education, that every child born has that same ability, not to just go out there and get a job cutting the grass. FDR said that we should have good equal economic education, and then he died a couple of weeks later. JFK came up with the idea and was dead 21 days later. Martin Luther King had the idea of equal economic education, died a couple of days later. Bobby Kennedy said that there's a violence of unequal institutions and differences in inaction. And he had to die a couple of days after that, after making that statement. Same with Richard Nixon. He had to be removed from office when he came up with the idea of equal economic education. The 45 richest entities of the world own 90% of the world's wealth, and they pay a very small amount of tax. If they paid normal tax, we would do away with discrimination, do away with poverty. We would have equal economic education, and this would do away with that discrimination. But you're not allowed to talk about equal economic education. The media won't cover that. We must stop Big Pharma from drugging us all. This is very important. We need to stop these people from just selling us more and more drugs. Iatrogenic doctor-caused disease is one of the largest killers now because of the synthetic drugs. To use a synthetic anything is an insult to the body. But yes, medicine is for sale. It's all profit-orientated. And now that the profit is getting the $770 billion, it's too tempting for them to use their power to try to drive out other ideas and to try to come up with ideas to sell us all drugs. And when we give them penalties, it's trivial to the amount of profits that they make. It's pharmaceutical roulette. But you're not allowed to talk about synthetic drugs. You're not allowed to talk about the body electric. You're not allowed to talk about those type of things. The media makes sure those topics aren't explored. We must enforce the law to prosecute any who let a minor smoke. This is against the law, the reckless endangerment. And yet cigarettes kill millions. And the crime is done every time a child smokes. This is murder. This is a form of murder that takes away part of this child's life. This is a crime. It's reckless endangerment to allow this to happen. When the police are not looking, they're looking away. They're guilty of not enforcing the law. These tobacco executives completely lie to us about everything. Profit over people. We must shift to growing our fuel and our medicines. We must have a plant-orientated economy. Go back to a farming economy. You see, in the broken cycle to the left, where we have fossil fuel, there's no replenishing. Oil is drilled from the ground. It's expensive, very dirty. It takes incredible refinement. And it creates pollution, it destroys oxygen, makes excess carbon dioxide. Whereas oil from plants reduces CO2, makes oxygen, and it's clean for our environment. Contributions to the senators voting against the energy bill is massive. We must stop the lobby groups from controlling the legislature. This is very important. We must stop the influence of the big money. We have to stop all these people from controlling us with their money, manipulating our minds. We must find a way to stop the psychopathic businesses and the businessmen. We must find a way to stop these people that want more and more and more and more, because that's psychopathology. We must not let these psychopaths be elected to office. We have to make sure that doesn't happen. Because when that happens, then things get really bad. We get wars based on lies. We drop bombs on women and children and non-war targets. We can't allow these things to happen. You see, the atomic bomb was dropped on human beings by an American president who dropped 2 atomic weapons on innocent women and children on a non-war target without any warning whatsoever. The greatest war crime known to man. And yet, everybody's looked away from that. It's time that we look at it. We must stop the wars that Bush started on lies. We must stop these things. War is good for a few, but it's bad for most. In fact, it's really only good for the weapons manufacturers, the military contracts. There was all kinds of people who made money. $17 trillion spent on war weapons every year. This is a massive amount for each person on the planet. If we just took 1 year and gave all that money to each of the people, we would end all the different problems of our society. We cannot let the ultra-rich manipulate us and kill for profit. We cannot let this continue. And the press is not really covering these things. The press has silenced these ideas. There are certain topics that cannot be discussed by the press. The media does not allow these topics. The media is not truly covering the Occupy Wall Street. They're not really covering the real ideas of what change is. There's certain discussions that are prohibited because they interfere with the profit. It's not really freedom of speech. CNN won't allow this video to be played. There's nothing more powerful than an idea's time has come. It's time to take out the trash. It's time to do something. Embrace your freedom of choice. Spread this movie to everyone.
I need some French fries and all the fry oil you can lay on me.
So what is this mystery solution?
That right there, it's the end of the gas conspiracy.
It's used cooking oil, the leftover gunk at the bottom of deep fat fryers. And believe it or not, this may be the next big thing.
I think that's it.
To put it to the test, they're going to drive a circuit in a diesel car which has their viewable fuel tank attached.
We've been hearing that people are running their cars completely without any modifications on used vegetable oil, like this.
But before experimenting with the oil, they first need to test regular diesel to find the car's normal fuel consumption.
Hold on. You're pretty much exactly at a liter, so give it a tiny bit more. That's perfect. Exactly right.
Okay, diesel, first run.
All right.
Ready.
Go.
The course is 4.7 kilometers long and has been designed so that they can maintain a steady 35 miles an hour all the way round.
What was the mileage on that?
8.8.
8.8, okay. 15 minutes and 15 seconds. 33 1/3 miles to the gallon on straight diesel.
With the baseline sussed, next up is the used cooking oil.
Ah, look at that. Pure power.
Pure power, it may be, but will the car even start? The engine is purring perfectly. They're off. Remember, this is unmodified chip oil, the stuff that restaurants everywhere chuck out.
It seems to be running just fine.
They do the laps and get a mileage almost identical to the diesel, which for free fuel is impressive.
Number one, I'm surprised and impressed that the car runs on just straight filtered used kitchen oil. But number two, the fuel efficiency, it's only 10% less than, you know, regular diesel fuel.
Yeah, that's cool.
The other thing is we didn't make any modifications to this car. That means anybody who had a diesel car could just pour the stuff straight into the gas tank and it would run fine. Woo! Yeah, baby!
All of the world's petroleum comes from algae that lived and died in shallow oceans eons ago. On the left I have 3 samples of algae oil that were extracted from chips that you see in the foreground. On the right there's jatropha oil that was extracted about 12 hours ago from seeds like the ones you see in the foreground. There's enough land in this area to grow all of the fuel to support the fuel needs of the United States.
In tropical climes there are certain times of day when all the citizens retire to tear off their clothes and perspire. It's one of those rules that the greatest fools obey, because the sun is much too sultry and we must unfold this ultraviolet rays. Oh yes. Natives grieve when the white man leaves their huts, because they know that they're all fucking goddamn nuts. Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The Japanese don't care to, the Chinese wouldn't dare to. Hindus and Argentines sleep early from 12 to 1, but the Englishmen detest a siesta. In the Philippines there are lovely screens that protect you from the glare. To the Malay states where the hats are plates the British ones won't wear. At 12 noon the natives swoon and no work is done, but mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the fucking sun.
He's mowing like a man possessed. Vegetable oil is used to make biodiesel for cars using a complex industrial process called transesterification. The Brainiacs prepared their oil using a process called frying. And it seems to be working as the mower approaches the finish line, and with it, an end to the global fuel crisis. Yes, he made it. Oh, the sweet smell of victory, which in this case smells a bit like chip shops.
It's such a surprise for the eastern eyes to see that though the English are effete, they're impervious to the heat. When a white man rides in the natives hide in glee, because the simple creatures hope he will impale his toupee on a tree. Oh yes, indeed, doody-dada. It seems such a shame that the English claim the earth, that they give rise to such a levity and mirth. Mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. The toughest Burmese bandits can never understand it. In Rangoon, the heat of noon, he sees the natives shun. They put their scotch and ride down and lie down. In a jungle town where the sun beats down on the rage of the beast, the English guard, the English sahib, merely just gets more creased. In Bangkok at the 12 o'clock, they foam at the mouth and run. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the fucking goddamn midday sun. The smallest Malay rabbit deplores this stupid habit. In Hong Kong, they strike a gong and they fire off a noonday gun to reprimand each inmate who's in there. In the mangrove swamps where the python romps, there's peace from 12 to 2. And even caribous lie around and snooze, there's nothing else to do. In Bengal, they move it, oh, it's seldom ever done. But mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday. Out in the midday, out in the midday, out in the midday. They go out in the midday, they go out in the midday. Fucking sound.
This great country of America, I am proud to be an American. I'm proud to be able to protest. I'm proud to be able to say these things, because that's freedom of speech. Freedom is a core concept. And the next concept is equality. The ideas of equality. It's said that all men are created equal. But how do you create a man? You create it through school, through education. We need equal economic education. To really establish equality, we cannot give a massive economic advantage to the rich in education. There has to be equal economic education. 1 penny less is prejudice. That's the only way we can really start to build back America. Next, we have to go back into the ideas. What founded America was that idea of insight, genius. Other countries in the world have never shown what America can do to make new ideas. But yet now today, new ideas are scoffed at, looked at, harshly treated, and especially if a new idea interferes with the profit of an old idea. New ideas about energetic medicine interfere with the profits of the chemical companies. I'm an example of that because I've been persecuted, prosecuted, laughed at, hunted down, wrongfully, maliciously treated because I had new ideas about energy and new ideas of energetic medicine. Was able to prove those ideas, but those ideas interfered with the drug companies. And the drug companies reached out and threatened me, threatened my family, persecuted, prosecuted me. We need to open our hearts to new ideas. Get back to the ideas, the foundation of America. We need to be able to have taxes on the ultra rich. You should be able to make lots and lots of money, but at a certain point you should be able to share. You must be forced to share because there are psychopaths that don't want to share and they don't want to care. We have to protect ourselves from these psychopaths. We have to be able to broaden our hearts and get back to what really created America, was that taking care of people, taking care of the other guy with our hearts and minds, sharing and caring. These are the instincts. It's not an instinct of uncontrolled greed. We have to get back to these ideas. Now as I come back to America, it's time that we start to look at these new ideas. Open our hearts, open our minds, to broaden our compassion till it surrounds all things, to get back to the American ideal. Equality, freedom, the powers of the mind, the powers and the freedom of expression. These are the things that we need to come back to. And if America can do this, we can recapture that grand glory of what America was. It's time for me to return.
Cheer. The men will shout. The ladies, they will all come out. They will all be glad when Billy comes marching home.
We need to return back to the farm. We need to get back to the ideas of growing our fuel and growing our medicine. Get away from the dependence of this dirty oil from the ground. We need to get back to the land. And by using the land to value our economy, we can do that and become greater as a nation.
Home again, hurrah, hurrah. What does medicine will have to be? Hurrah, hurrah. Natural medicine will have its day. He will beat the FDA. Natural medicine will have its day. We all be glad. We'll all be glad. When will they? When will they? When will they come back?
We cannot allow the ultra-rich to control us. We have to get back to the land and value that land and get into the farms and make our medicines and our fuel.